to be a part of this discussion. And we're going to move forward.
But I wasn't expecting to respond.
We also want to make sure that everyone's call, I thought everyone should be on mute. I thought we had them on mute, but if you are, if you can mute your phone, just because we can hear the background noise, and I want to make sure that everyone on the call does hear what is being said today. I do want to introduce the organizational team. Those are folks that have reached out here and want to be a My name is Carmen Smith. I am the Senior Manager of Travel and Events, ICF. Andrew Wilcox is our Manager of Travel in Europe and Asia for ICF. And then we have Charlie Grappone, as the Director of Sales, New York City for Citizen M Hotels. And Charlie is a Global Account Manager there. Roman Neumeister is Travel and Global Security with the World Bank. Kathy Rigby is the Program Manager for Travel, Risk, and Safety with CFA Institute. Tanya Fairbaugh is part of my team. She's a Purchasing Associate, as well as Carly Van Dyke. She's the Travel and Events Assistant. We also have on the call some folks from GBTA, which I'm really glad to have, and I'm glad they've taken the time to be here. That's Dawn Rapoli, Director of Training, Deanna Worrell, the Manager of Volunteer Engagement, and then we have Shane Downey. I'm sure many of you know Shane, Vice President of Government and Community Relations, GBTA. And at this time, I am going to send the mic over to Shane and let him say a few words.
Thanks so much, Carmen. Really appreciate it. And I see that my mic is unmuted, so hopefully you all can hear me, because it is the world that we live in today, and I hope it's not for very long. But as you guys know, things are changing. And when we were kind of first started down this route here back in right around St. Patrick's Day and a little bit after that, we started pushing the membership to the GBTA Hub. We felt like this was a perfect place for people to stay connected to the association, stay connected in the industry, and to start having discussions. And this is exactly what we were hoping for. We wanted to see organic discussions come from you all, because you are thought leaders. It's you that help us understand what information that it is that we can provide, that we can help you with. And then vice versa, the information that you're taking, that you're incorporating into your business plans, into your travel and such, that's information that we also take, and we share that information as recommendations or such with the government and the policymakers out there. So we're out there, we're helping it. You're helping to shape policies here in the U.S. and the EU just by having these conversations. So I really look forward to the rest of today's conversation. I look forward to hearing what it is that you're thinking, what it is, the information that you need, what we can get for you, and really see how this can all grow and really turn into something spectacular, which I feel like we're off to a fantastic start already. Now, I would like to turn it over to Dawn just for a second to hit on a little bit of the professional development opportunities.
Thank you, Shane, and I echo Shane's sentiments. Thank you to all of you for being the thought leaders in the travel industry. I am the Director of Training for GBTA Professional Development, and it's calls like these that are going to help shape what our industry webinars, personal as well as career webinars, will look like. Please be sure to visit GBTA webinars and online trainings on our website, where you will see this recording, as well as many others that will pertain to the future of travel. I would like to introduce to you Deanna Worrell.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for joining this call. So briefly, just based on the conversation that transpired on the hub, we're actually going to turn this into a group now on the GBTA hub called Return to Travel Post-COVID Think Tank. And here I think you'll find we'll have a lot of different topics that spiral off of this main discussion today. And in that group, you can begin to break out your discussions based on different topics. So if you want to break it out by travel verticals, you can do that. And then also in groups, you can share documents and invite people to different events on that group. And so I think it'll be a really good addition and resource to the membership and to this conversation following the discussion. So thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you, Shane and Dawn and Deanna. I really appreciate your input surrounding this and the support that GBTA has provided during this time. So again, initially, I want to welcome you again. But two of the overarching questions that we had surrounding this was, what will the new normal look like? And then what does the new normal mean? So what does that mean to your companies? What does it mean to you individually? And how are you going to promote this to your executive leadership or to your stakeholders that will be making those decisions? One of the things that I wanted to just talk about here, and I'm sure many of you know Caroline Straken of Festive Road. She reached out to me regarding this post, and then this is an article that she had written, Beyond the Pause, Preparing for Corporate Travel Post-COVID-19. But in this, she said, if you don't get anything out of this, the biggest thing is to do an assessment of what they call permissible travel. And this is the formula that they've come up with: company confidence by traveler confidence by government permission equals permissible travel. And I guess as we talk today and look at some of the topics that we're going to talk about, or just some offshoots of this or ideas, permissible travel would fit very nicely into this conversation. And what does that mean to each of your companies and to each of your programs? Now, our hope was that maybe there's a bi-weekly call, but as GBTA has so nicely done, they have turned this into a think tank opportunity. And so we want to make sure that, your voice is heard, that the subject matter surrounding this topic is addressed, and then also that if there's any morphing that has taken place, offshoots of this topic, that those are also addressed as well. And at the end of this call, we are going to send a survey out. We just want to get your feedback about this call, also about your thoughts, the frequency of meeting, if that's an option, if there's any other topics that you want to discuss. We will be doing a survey at the end of this. You will receive that by email, and we just ask that you participate. And as we get the results from that, we will send those out to you. So some of our initial conversations and talking, with our group and the steering committee, and just some of the things that were reached out when people reached out to me, is we wanted to know, opening the world, who goes first, and what are some of the challenges going to be? What immigration challenges? What bordering openings are going to happen? I know Shane talked about that a little bit in his talk to us, but there are going to be challenges, and is it going to be a phased or measured return? What indicators are we to be looking for when that happens? And then also, should everybody return at once? And then what is an ideal time frame for that return? So these are some of the initial conversations to get, and I'm sure some of you have already been thinking about this, but we wanted to just kind of probe you a little bit. Now, we've had a tremendous response to that question. And these are the various folks that we have, the different perspectives that are on this call. We have folks from the airlines, consultants, TMCs, others like me who are travel managers, tech companies, etc., and hotels. So it is really a broad cross-segment of our industry. And we would like to have, everybody's perspective, surrounding this, because everyone is going to address this very differently. So some of the future discussions can look like industry segmented discussions. What are the airlines? And I know that some of you all have been just inundated, with the various calls and various responses to COVID-19. So we don't want to overwhelm you, but we do want you to participate, if possible. But some of the segment discussions could be, from the airlines, what is their thought and how are they addressing it? And many of them have been. Ground transportation, what does that look like? Uber, Lyft, hotels, corporate housing, car rentals. So, some of those responses and what they're doing toward COVID-19. Also, what are the triggers? What are we to look for? What are the potential financial risks, by companies returning too early or even returning too late? What is that going to look like? And identifying essential travelers. What does that mean to you? And what does that mean to your company? Everybody, it may mean something different depending on the type of business that you're in, the nature of business that you're in. So what does essential travelers mean to you? And then also the experts have been talking about a second wave. So, what will quarantine look like? How will you screen and change your operations? And this is particularly for our suppliers. What does screening and operation changes look like to accommodate the traveler safety? My husband works for an airline, and so he has to go into work. And he said today they've started taking their temperature. And then so they've put in procedures behind if a worker comes to work, with a temperature of less than 100 or 100 and less than, they can go to work. But if they, register 100 or over 100 degrees, then there's protocols and they'll be sent home. So those are some of the things behind the scene that are starting to take place. Also, your TMCs, we have a great partner with our TMC. So what are the discussions that you're having with your TMCs? And I'm talking to our travel managers here, but even, TMCs partner with, everyone in the industry. They help us manage our travel. So they're talking to the airlines, they're talking to hotels. And so what kind of help is your TMC giving you, and how are they helping you navigate this COVID-19 pandemic? And then also, will this evolve into other crisis discussions? This came up so fast, so we've been very reactionary to it, but what kind of proactive approaches are we taking so that if something like this happens again, what are we going to do to prevent it, or what things are we going to have in place or policies in place, that will help us navigate it more quickly than we have done right now? And then travel and risk management policy changes. Has your company made those changes? Are those changes temporarily just, due to the travel bans, or will they be long-term? Will they, morph into something else? And then also, how are you balancing the extremes, the extreme of not traveling at all, as most of us are not doing, to going back in a rush? What is that going to look like? How is your company going to balance those extremes? And then also, what business models have changed, for us and for some traditional companies. ICF it's a hybrid approach. So there are folks that work, remotely on a regular basis, but most of us go into an office, and so this is very different for us. So what are some of those business model changes that may be happening in your company? I know some of you who are in the industry, who are sales folks, that you already, work from home and then you travel. So are there going to be any model changes for you, even though that's your normal setting? So these are just some of the questions that we have proposed and offered as possible discussions. And these are just some of the resources that we have come across and that we've posted. Of course, GBTA has their own COVID-19 statement. That link is here. There was also something put out by the American Enterprise Institute on the U.S.-centric road to recovery. BTN has put out taking action for what comes next. I posted Caroline Stracan's full article on preparing for corporate travel post COVID-19. So this is the end of that presentation. However, I want to just get some feedback from our committee and just kind of what their companies are doing or thinking about. And so the first person that I'm going to call upon is Roman Neumeister. And as I said, Roman is with the World Bank. So Roman.
Thank you, Carmen, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this conversation. I've been with the Global Travel Unit of the World Bank Group for the past 12 plus years in various roles, but have recently started an assignment with our Global Corporate Security team to focus on some special projects that bridge the gap between travel and security and travel risk management. And the COVID-19 response in relation to travel is just one of them. So as to our business model, I mean, as you're aware, the World Bank is not a bank as such, a financial institution, but more of a financial aid institution as part of the United Nations family. Our business model is not changing. On the contrary, it's going to be even more required for our people to be out in the field and supporting developing countries with their not only COVID-19 response, but in general with their developmental work that they're doing. At present, at our organization, all travel is suspended. The only exceptions are if you get authorization by your vice president. Mostly this relates to relocation or evacuation. We have a lot of staff that are stationed in high-risk countries where there's no modern medical facilities. So the fear there, of course, is what if something happens? What if they do have, if they do get infected? Who's going to take care of them, etc. But the assignment that I'm on right now is seen from a travel risk management perspective. As to, what is the new norm going to be? And I've separated this in 4 sections. One is pre-travel, during travel, then being in the country, and then what is required once you return to your station. So examples that I'm looking at, for example, is are there certain restrictions by country as to which nationals are allowed to enter a country? And if so, what are they? Are there any pre-departure requirements imposed by the visiting country and or airline flown to meet prior to departure? And what are they? Are there health screenings? I understand that Emirates, for example, they are taking blood examples now. They're testing for COVID-19. Is this going to be an industry standard, or is this by airline or by country? Will our travelers need to have health or inoculation certificates prior to travel? What type of documentation will they have to have entering a country which says, I've been to that country before or that region, and would that exclude them from entering that other country? What are the requirements to carry personal protective equipment, and what are they? Is it face mask only, or do they have to have gloves, etc.? Then during travel, are there any requirements how to behave while you're traveling? I mean, there's talks now of not occupying middle seats, and I think Michael Leary of Ryanair already said that makes no sense because the air condition on an airplane will transmit either way. The next phase will be once you arrived at the destination countries, are there going to be screening facilities at the airport? What documentation is required? Are there specific quarantine requirements when entering the country? And if so, what are they? How long do you need to go into quarantine and where? Are there movement restrictions once you're in the country? And then also, will there be checkpoints where as a visitor, you will have to check in regularly with authorities to demonstrate you're still COVID-free? So all these, I mean, it's a huge list of items that we are going to look at, and I think as an industry, we'll have to jointly look at and develop some sort of framework where this would all be listed. So thank you, Carmen.
Thank you. I want to have Kathy Rigby just come and talk a little bit. She is from the CFA Institute, and we also want to be, mindful because we do want to hear from our industry folks too. So, Kathy, would you go ahead and talk about your position at CFA Institute?
Kathy, are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Now
Yes.
we can hear you.
My apologies, everybody. Thanks, Carmen, and welcome to our discussion today. When we talk about the new travel, I think that program managers will use this staggering ground stop as an opportunity to identify gaps associated with travel risk and safety protocol and strengthen the mitigation measures. I predict we'll see a stronger travel risk and safety service and long-term policy mandates as opposed to guidelines. So, for instance, requiring travelers to use your authorized travel management company, perhaps eliminating personal add-on or leisure travel, and including even those travelers who are not staff to comply with a policy and receive services such as access to the organization's travel preparedness, health and safety resources, as well as 24/7 emergency services. I can also predict implementing travel pre-approvals to validate the necessity of travel, as well as identify high-risk destination travel, limiting number of travelers on the same flight, and enhancing care for the workforce returning from travel. So I think travel managers will experience a renewed interest by leaders to champion initiatives developed to both mitigate risk and boost traveler peace of mind. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate your input. Next, I have Charlie Grappone. Charlie is with Citizen M Hotels.
Well, first and foremost, Carmen, let's do this the right way and make sure that everybody can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful. So thanks so much, Carmen. It's really great to have been a part of organizing this, and excited to be here and just see everyone's thoughts already here in the chat. It's such an amazing turnout for something like this. So as Carmen just mentioned, here at Citizen M, I oversee partner corporate accounts globally. I should probably take this time to mention that of our 19 hotels we currently have open, we've kept almost all of them open throughout the pandemic. In line with the topics of today and future calls we have, I wanted to mention also that Citizen M is taking a number of measures. We're currently developing entirely new guidelines, which we actually call our Citizen M rules, and we'll be including more on how to be safe and feel safe as employees and of course for our customers. While we're waiting on guidelines from the countries we operate in, some other things of note, our app is in the testing phase currently that will allow keyless entry to guest rooms. So of course, we already have a mobile check-in. We've had one for years now. Other things to note, we have plenty of masks, gloves, hand sanitizer on hand at our hotels, already sanitize all of the key cards. So we're really paying attention to what's going on. And I think as a concept, we're really well situated to come out of this strongly. Lastly, I think that with everything that we're seeing in the news these days, it is nice to also note that on a human level that we've kept every single one of our employees around the world employed. And as a colleague of mine here at Citizen M said just yesterday, very accurate description, I feel, we're keeping the engines running and the car idling, and when the flag comes down to start racing again, we'll be one of the first ready, as our hotels, like I said, are already open. And with our concept, we actually have half of the staffing that hotels of similar size have, so that attributes to less human contact. But enough shameless Citizen M self-promotion. Really great to be here and hear what everyone else around the world is up to during this pandemic. Thank you, Carmen.
Thanks a lot, Charlie. I want to just get some input from Andrew Wilcox. Andrew is my manager of travel over in Europe and Asia. And, we've been talking about this largely from we're saying global, but, we've been talking about it mainly going on in the United States. And so, as we know, there are differences in Europe and in Asia. So, Andrew, can you just give your input from a European standpoint?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Carmen. What I'm going to say is my belief over how I see the situation in Europe developing over a period of time. I think it will take some considerable time to return to whatever the new norm will be. I did a research around this. According to Wikipedia, there are 51 countries in Europe, of which 27 are part of the EU. The COVID crisis has hit different times across Europe, and therefore countries will be lifting their social distancing and other measures at different times. I heard on the news this morning that the EU will be publishing suggested guidelines to aid member states how and when they should determine lifting their current restrictions. The three measures that I think I heard were a significant drop in death and new infection rates, the ability of their health service to cope with COVID-19 and their general day-to-day health requirements, and having an appropriate level of testing. I believe social distancing measures will be gradually lifted, and I don't think it will happen very quickly just to prevent further infections happening. And governments will then deem it safe for their citizens to travel to work and then maybe travel within country. If levels of new infections stay relatively low, I think countries will then introduce travel to other countries they deem safe. This could be regional travel and then intercontinental travel. This assumes airlines and probably also, very importantly, the rail network, as rail is an important feature of travel in Europe, schedules return at a similar time, and the remaining travel in infrastructure, hotels, the metro, underground taxis, restaurants, can match demand. It's all very well saying, we want to get back, but if the infrastructure is not there, it will be it won't be so good. There could also be limiting factors for cross-border travel if new immigration and quarantine measures are introduced. So I think I'm going to stop there because I've taken a reasonable amount of time. Only time will tell how the journey of returning to travel will unfold. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. This is Tanya. At this time, I'd like to have Anita Salvatore, who's the Senior VP and General Manager of CTM North America, and Maureen Brady, our CEO, COO, CTM North America, give sort of their guidance and their input as well.
Thank you. This is Anita Salvatore from CTM. We've been working closely with clients, consulting on several areas with respect to traveler well-being, travel assets, what's your financial exposure and how are you working that, policy considerations in travel management, traveler supplier support, risk mitigation, what is going to be provided to travelers in terms of masks, gloves, in working closely with various procurement teams and key stakeholders. There's considerations around that level of equipment. And what kind of communication is being issued to employees as it relates to travel. So these are the items that we're focused on. We do feel that traveler surveys are critical to understand where your travelers may have a fear, what their temperature is, so to speak, as it relates to getting back on the road, to help you design programs accordingly. So nothing else from this end other than those 7 key factors that I named.
Thanks, Anita. We appreciate it very much. Tanya, I think you had some questions there. We'd like to ask those one at a time out, and then have Shane, if he's available, or anyone on that would like to answer those questions.
Yes. So the first question that I saw was, if we're projecting a second wave, why would we have a GBTA conference in November?
Sure. Thank you for asking that question. I think while there might be some projections for a second wave, I don't know that anybody is predicting one. It's been our understanding that, and what we see every day new developments, new increased testing, new positive signs for being able to travel and to be able to host a very successful GBTA convention. We feel like it will be a very strong message to the economy and really to the world that travel is strong and will remain and will continue to be a part of everybody's lives. So there is a part of that. We have been discussing and working on different areas and different ways and different contingency plans for this really since late December, early January, when we first started hearing about this issue over in China. With Scott Salambrino as their executive director. Look, I've been at the association as one of the longest. I didn't start at GBTA until 2006. So I missed the entire SARS episode. I was around for Ebola. I remember dealing with it. We dealt with it. We sent out information. It was never the type of impact that we had that hit us. Through Scott's experience, through 9/11, through the SARS episode, he had us thinking and talking about and understanding that this could be a real problem for business travel and travel in general. So we've been at this for a long time now, and talking about different ways to help the industry deal with it. So we are proceeding forward with the convention. We do believe there will be more good items to come that will entail and encourage a very successful convention. So it's, I guess, like the Bon Jovi song last night with Jersey Strong, a little bit living on a prayer, but I think we're on a pretty solid basis for that, and really do look forward to seeing you all in Denver, Colorado for the convention.
Thanks, Shane. Tanya?
Yes, so Kristen Reeves asked, so who is responsible for having the most up-to-date information? Duty of care companies like ISOS, TMCs, travel managers? She's just curious how to look at this as we start to prepare to send travelers back out.
Right. Ben Schwartz, are you on the phone? I think we do have someone from ISOS, hopefully can answer that question. Do you see his name, Tanya?
I am, Carmen. Sorry about that. A little technology biting us all, I think, today. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I think there's there's a couple of layers here that obviously you want to be pulling in here. We don't at International SOS, we don't necessarily claim to have all the answers or necessarily all bits of the information that's coming forth, but it's we're trying to present things in a way that you can look at it against the backdrop of your own organization. So try to understand what may be relevant to you. I think a lot of those pieces were touched on early on, and then starting to look at the ways tools will fit in here, right? What can certainly support the efforts based on what your organization needs to do, whether that be pre-approval for travel or predetermination, as well as the adjustment as borders begin to open up, right? As we're starting to see in Asia, they're starting to open up borders, but we're thinking that they're likely going to say, there's going to be restrictions. So how do organizations position themselves so that they're understanding how do they fit their folks back out into the field? Is that going to be some requirements for health screenings or pre-deployment screenings, or even just new visa requirements? And then when potentially those second waves come through, how do you adjust, or how do you, when things get pulled back, let's say from a phase 3 to a phase 1, how do organizations adjust to that end? So there's a number of things that we're looking at in terms of what does it mean across the grand spectrum, but it's each organization that has to look at this and say, well, which parts are important to us? And we know that that's not going to be an easy piece. We're just looking to support anybody who has potential questions on how do they approach this for their organization.
Great, thanks, Ben.
You bet.
Appreciate that. Tanya?
Charlie, this is directed to you. How is Citizen M filling up hotel rooms, especially in New York City?
Thanks, Tanya. So we're obviously, I mean, I'm not going to be as transparent as possible with the entire group. We're obviously not filling them as much as we'd like. We're also taking a lot of measures to maintain social distancing, such as limiting the occupancy of our hotels. We're now taking full occupancy. We've closed all of our outlets. We're doing breakfast in a bag, which we've never done before. So we're not filling them as we'd like to, but we are open for business. We're open on all channels. So I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you. And if there are any other hoteliers that would like to just chime in on that question, if you would just let Tanya know so we can unmute you.
This is Shane. I was just kind of looking at the many questions over on the chat items that are coming up, and I thought there was one that was interesting about, how will you determine which of your travelers should be traveling and where they should be going to, and I think that's likely going to be a big part of how we even go back to work. As our different areas that we live in, as they determine it's good, and then our companies themselves determine, okay, this person needs to be back in the office, these people need to be back in the office, and how you set up, your different routines and within the office. I think that will likely, those procedures and policies, and as we learn more from what we're going to see happen in Georgia. I hope you all are safe in Georgia, and how that state opens up and how other states start to open up. I think that will help all provide real-time examples of how to bring back the employees, and then in turn help guide how people start traveling again. What and how that will unfold. So there are so many different unanswered questions out there, and I think there will be so many education sessions at convention entitled "I Survived the Pandemic. How did I do it? How did our company do it?" It's going to be something. So as you have these questions and have these different areas or issues, go into the hub and the different segments, and let's take a look and brainstorm on them and share what's working for your company or how your company is approaching it. Every day now you're seeing conversations in the media, or you're starting to see news articles now in the media about how different groups are starting to come back, and you guys have already touched on a few of them, but I think you'll continue to see more and more. We'll continue to push that out to members of Congress and to the agencies here in the U.S. and the EU to help them better understand how to form policies and what works and what is the proper way to do it. So I'll shut up now. I hate dead silence. I hate dead air. So I always feel the need to interject when I hear dead air. So I'll shut up now and let other
That's
people
all
talk.
right.
Carmen, we actually have Brian Vaughn who would like to address the hotel issue as well.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon or good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. I know that, no chain person can speak for every hotel with what's happening, but in having to present proposals and to, with customers, I'm a global account manager here, so I am working with people that are still traveling with pipeline companies and transportation companies. Our hotels have obviously stopped doing any kind of buffet. All public spaces essentially are closed, and those that typically offer breakfast are doing so, again, like mentioned before, on a grab and go, a bag breakfast situation. But the housekeeping change is maybe the most specific and largest change, in that housekeepers are not accessing occupied rooms. Guests are going into those rooms, staying for their length of stay. No one else is going into those rooms. If there is an engineering issue, they are working through the phone or at the front desk to try and troubleshoot, so that there is no access to the guest room for anybody but that guest. They can, during their stay, get fresh linens, fresh towels, but again, it's being done. A bag of fresh linens is dropped at the door. The guest takes in the fresh linens, takes the old, dirty linens, puts them in that bag, and puts them back out in the hallway. So many hotels have put in, essentially using that physical distancing and social distancing situation, to remove as many physical touch points with guests as possible.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that.
We also have Elaine Sampson with the Vancouver Metrotown Hilton that would also like to address that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. So similar to what Brian was saying, that some hotels in our market are not servicing rooms. However, at our hotel, if guests want, we are still servicing rooms. So they will vacate the room, and some of them are going into offices or doing virtual training in the hotel and then doing training at their offices. So when they vacate the room, that's when our employees are able to get in. Similar to what other hotels are doing, we are doing the bagged breakfast as well. But when engineering calls and whatnot, we are still getting access to the rooms for whatever the guests are feeling comfortable with. Right. And so we've just upped the game in terms of cleanliness and, constantly going in and around and disinfecting. But Hilton is also has a program where guests can text our front desk, and we're in contact with them constantly, right from check-in, right through their whole stay, and they can text the front desk. And so we can limit them coming down to the front desk.
Awesome. Thank you, Elaine. Tanya?
So we have another question. Where are we fitting in the traveler's mental health and overall well-being? That was an area that was gaining momentum before COVID hit. What will business travel well-being initiatives look like after this unfolds?
So, for our company, I think part of it is, I think travelers want to know that their companies care about them. That's the first and foremost thing. One of the changes that has happened with ICF is that we were not a mandated program prior to COVID-19. We are now a mandated program. And I think that our executives have realized the importance of duty of care, whereas before it might have been, oh, it's nice to have, people hear about it. But when you have to locate your travelers, ensure that they get back because borders are closing, or if they're stuck for whatever reason and they can't get out, dealing with those types of issues. I think that that's important, that a traveler feels that their company, cares about them. One of the things that we have also in our policy, and it's been in our policy even before this, if a person or a traveler does not feel safe, so the environment they're going to, or just even now, I guess, with getting on a plane with people next to you, they don't have to travel, and they're not penalized for that. So I think by the constant communication, we have a COVID-19 website on our intranet site. We have a space there that people can write and ask questions, and we have a FAQs that we have a cross-functional working group there that has been addressing that and also recommending to our executive leadership. Also to your ERP programs and programs that are available through counseling and different avenues within your company. That has also been something that's been offered to us. And I, like I said, I would just say that the more flexible that a company is and the more communication that a company provides, that also helps with that mental stability. If you are having some issues, certainly HR is a vehicle, to talk to, or your managers. So if there's anybody else that would like to, and I know we're getting down to time, so if we don't get to your questions, please put them in the chat box. We will, we will make sure that we do answer each and every one of them. A recording of this conversation and this discussion will be posted, to the GBTA forum site, as well as, we will email those who were on this call as well. So if there is someone there that has another view or perspective, certainly please let Tanya know and she will unmute you and let you speak on behalf of that.
Okay, there's about 5 more minutes and then we should do a wrap up. But there was a question, thoughts about economics from various suppliers, hotels, airlines, TMCs. What are your thoughts regarding pricing in the next 6 months or so?
Is there anybody from the airline industry or car rental industry that would like to answer that question? I know that hasn't.
Have anyone that has said that they would like to share, but okay. So I'll just
that would be a question that maybe we can answer. I know just in my conversations, and I've seen articles too, just in my conversations with our suppliers. They've got the waivers, they've got the extended time frame that you can reissue a ticket without any further penalties to that. So those are some of the initials. And I think there was an article, and I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on Skift, but it was addressing the recommendation that airlines didn't drop their prices, immediately. Although I know that in some cases it has happened, and I know people are, booking accordingly in hopes that they can travel later. And in fact, we have a young lady on our team that markets, for our travel department, and she just did a blog, specifically on that topic. But I don't have that answer, from a industry standpoint, from a supplier standpoint, but we certainly will make sure that we address that and get some feedback for you on that.
Carmen, this is Roman. I'm certainly not an airline expert, but I would assume that capacity will be very limited, in particular for international flights. And in order to make those flights profitable, I don't see that flight or fares are going to go down. And on the contrary, I think there will be an attempt to really sell high yield from the get-go. That's just an assumption. So again, open discussion.
No, that's a great point, Roman. And I know that middle seats are being closed off now, which we always wanted anyway. So maybe that's a good thought about how that's going to go forward. And then I know that those complimentary upgrades, many of them, because of the space capacity, are not being honored. I think they're being done at the gate, depending on how many people are up in first or business. So I know that those complimentary upgrades are not happening. You have to have already purchased a ticket in that area, or they are being done at the gate as opposed to ahead of time.
Well, if you look at some of the IATA analysis or ICAO, that the expectation is that we're going to go back to pre-COVID-19 seat levels in maybe 2 years from now. So for the next 2 years, I think there will be a lot of fight over seats, basically. So airlines will sell them at high yield.
Anybody else on that? Shane, I'm going to let you have the last word on this call. If there aren't any other questions, Tanya, I want to personally thank everyone from the bottom of my heart, because like I said, I was not expecting the traction that my question got or my posting. We certainly would like you to fill out the survey so that we know in which direction that we want to go. And again, I will let GBTA have the last word and talk about it from their perspective. But our team, from Roman, Kathy, Charlie, Andrew, Tanya, Carly, and myself, I would certainly like to thank you all for engaging in this conversation, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen. Without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Shane Downey so that he can have the last word.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation and discussion online as well as on air, and really look forward to seeing these conversations continue on the Hub. I know Dawn, myself, Deanna, as well as Amanda Cecil, who heads up our professional development department, will be circling back and talking about what it is that we can provide, and what it is, what are the different kinds of information that you need. We'll also continue to push forward articles that we think are helpful in the daily news feed. And if you are not receiving the daily news brief, please let us know. It could be that you've accidentally unsubscribed yourself and such. But it certainly seems, just from the chatting and the different things, there are so many different ideas and thoughts about, is it better to take a rental car or a ride sharing, or should you even be considering maybe taking black car services over rental cars? There's even talk about private jets, booking private jets versus commercial air. I think so many, as you know, will be based on what it is that your company feels is the proper way to go. But I feel as if the possibilities and combinations for travel are endless, and that we all will come out of this a stronger and a better industry than we were when all of this disease and disruption came about and hit the industry. So thank you all for everything that you do. We will stay strong, and we will all get through this. And I have seen other items and memes that say we're not all in this, we're not all experiencing the same thing, and we're not. Each of us are having different experiences in our lives, but there is the common theme that weaves us all together and put us all into this place. And I think that common theme will be what gets us through it all, and really will make us a stronger place. So thank you all. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everyone. And that concludes this call for today, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carmen?
Yes.